Hey, I'm back. I wanted to update you, even though it's wintertime, where I am at planning for next year's garden. I've been pretty crazy diligent in reading about things, and particularly about square foot gardening. I've been doing a lot in that, and also for companion planting and medicinal plants that I can grow here. Not too extreme ones, but like calendula, um, mullein, things like that that can be used for first aid or for teas, for calming, or for antibacterial purposes and salves and things like that. So for the square foot gardening, I have ordered a bunch of seeds, and I'm going to show you the layout that I'm planning for the first two boxes. If you're not familiar with square foot gardening, and I'm very new at this, so apologize if I get some of it wrong, but my understanding is you have, like, let's say a 4x4 raised bed, and then you block that out into 1 square increments, and you can plan how many of a particular plant you're going to put in each square foot. And the neat thing about it is the idea behind it is that you can fit more in a space than you would if you were just planting in rows. If you're actually planting as, instead of thinning later, basically planting as instructions say the spacing is needed. And there's tons of videos out there and books out there on this. This guy, I believe he was an engineer, started the idea in like the 70s or 80s, and it seems interesting. And so since I'm so new at this, I thought it's a good kind of starting point where I don't feel like completely out of control, unaware of what I'm doing, even though that's pretty much still true. So let me show you what I've got in terms of seeds. So I ordered from this company called, for medicinal seeds, Strictly Medicinal Seeds here. And I got some books on herbal medicine that I'll show you in a minute, on medicinal food and stuff. But the seeds I have gotten to grow from grow from seed here, includes lemon balm, let's see, Czech lavender, echinacea, which I wasn't aware of is actually purple coneflower, yarrow, and particularly I believe the white kind is the one that can be used for medicinal. The others aren't quite as useful or don't provide the value. Mullein, calendula, which everyone knows is really good for the skin. I believe it also has antibiotic properties. St. John's wort, valerian. You ever heard of valerian root? That's very good for you. And I'll go into more. This vlog is probably going to become more of a medicinal vlog at some point as well. I've done bergamot, peppermint, German chamomile, which we know is in a bunch of teas, and I thought, well, why don't I do this on my own? And then you can see I got some water on it, so I had to let it dry. But elderberry, which I found out after I bought the seeds, you can actually do from cuttings. You can actually do it instead of from seed, but I have planted them outside for the winter season. I had to soak the seeds. I'll show you, they're tiny little seeds. I had to soak the seeds overnight in a jar, and then you can see how tiny these things are. Let's see if I can show you just how tiny these seeds are. Look how tiny that is. Anyway, yeah, so you soak them overnight, and then you put them through a sieve, and there's tiny seeds, like smaller than the size of raspberry seeds inside. There's like 4 to 6 inside of each one of these little things. So I've planted that outside over the winter, and I have it in a box right outside of the door. And I'm hoping I'll see something. It takes 2 to 3 years before they start flowering and producing a lot of fruit. And also birds might eat it, so we'll see what happens with that. I also, with my sunflower seeds, I harvested the seeds. You can see some have escaped from the envelope here. And there we go. They're little black seeds, and they're tiny, tiny things, but I probably have in this envelope probably a good 100. And I have labeled them Mexican sunflower seeds and the date of when I harvested them. So hopefully, and I might share them with some friends, so we'll see how that goes. All right, now I'm going to show you the square foot gardening thing, and I'm going to switch cameras here. Since I'm so new at this, I got a catalog that I knew had heirloom seeds, meaning, or open pollinated seeds, meaning that I could very easily harvest them potentially for next year. And it has just beautiful pictures. You can see I've marked ones. I'm on a bunch of Facebook groups, and I asked the groups, like the local Maryland gardening group, what do you recommend for your garden? So I got that. And then I came up with a list. They didn't have everything in stock, but you can see generally bush beans, beets, Brussels sprouts, which I have now decided not to do, even though I've ordered the seeds. Carrots. These Karuta carrots are actually shorter, so they can fit in a raised bed. They don't need as much space. Cucumbers. I didn't end up ordering the tatsui because it had bad reviews online for bugs. Arugula, kale, dinosaur kale, or Nero de Toscana. Tennis ball lettuce that are supposed to be like this big and was grown originally by Thomas Jefferson locally. So that gives me that gives me hope. Fish peppers, more peppers, radishes, yellow squash, which I see all the time in the farmers markets. I figured it was safe to do. Vulcan chard, which is the red stemmed chard, and I was told that it grows the best in the Maryland area. And then Cherokee purple tomatoes, these massive tomatoes. I'll see if I can find it in the catalog. I did buy some flowers. They're Freckles Viola pansies, I believe. I have to double check that. But they're so cute. And then sugar snap peas, sugar anns. So that's sort of a list of what I'm going to have in the garden. And then I created these charts. I looked at companion lists. I looked at where the shade would be. So for here, let's see, I'll turn it away. You can see it easy. For here, the shade for the house, this is our driveway up here. The shade goes this direction. I looked it up online and I've watched over time. And so this is going to be, this 4x4 square is going to be next to the house. And then the other square is going to be a little further down in the field, in the front yard. So they say you could do zebra tomatoes in 1 square even, or 2 squares if you trim really aggressively. But I know in Maryland that the tomato plants kind of go crazy. And also I'm not experienced in trimming and in pruning and all that stuff. So I'm just giving them 4 squares, even though it might be a waste each. And then the fish peppers, the peppers I'm basically putting together. I'm doing 2 of the Italian peppers because I read in the description that they're good for drying. I've added calendula. They are, as you saw, they were some of the herbs I want to grow, but also they apparently draw beneficial insects that will eat some of the bugs that will come over here. And then basil, which also will draw beneficial insects to eat the other things. I've got the radishes, and you can see, so this is 16, which means I'm going to plant 16 in this square because they take up very little space versus like the tomato or the peppers, which you get 1 each. All right, so that gives you an idea of, I tried to put the stuff that would be the tallest, and this marks a trellis I'm going to build here. I tried to put the tallest plants that would create the most shade on the far end, and then the ones that might get a tiny bit less sun, the basil and calendula, sometimes the tree shade there's a tree in this direction, it might get a tiny bit less sun than the rest of these, and so that's part of why I put them there. All right, and then I'll show you the other one. This is for the square that'll go in front of the holly bush. You saw where that was. Again, I have the trellises here, and we know the shadow, and the holly bush is here, and the shadow goes this way. But it doesn't cast a huge shadow in this direction, so it should be okay. So I've got the early fortune cucumbers, and I read that you don't want them to be near aromatic herbs because they don't get along. So I made sure to put any aromatic herbs far away. Sugar snap peas, which also need the trellis. The yellow squash I could probably give 1 square, but I again decided to be on the safer side of them not overwhelming everything. You can see I did the stuff in the boxes in pencil because you can see I had to erase multiple times and kind of change them around. I'm putting the kale here, the bush beans. The bush beans don't need trellises, which is one reason I got them. Little Marvel garden peas, which weren't on the list you just saw, but they didn't have the other peas I wanted, so I got these instead. ruby queen beet. There's the tennis ball lettuce will be in the front, facing the main road, and arugula, and then the chamomile, dill, and the Swiss chard. So we'll see. Again, this is sort of an area that might get a little bit more shade. And I've read that plants that don't produce fruit on top, they just produce leaves that you would eat, tend to do better with a little bit of shade. So I'm hoping that's true. So I'm going to give you a quick rundown of what else is going on. So these are the books that I've been looking at. The Herbal Apothecary provides a great sort of dictionary type reference of what to expect from the plants. It includes things like recipes, but also medicinal uses, identification, possible contradictions, and things not to pair it with. It's very useful. This one, Herbal Healing Infusions, I got from my sister for Christmas. It was on my wish list. And it provides some pretty easy, basic things like combining peppermint and lavender for a calming rub or things like that. I really enjoy that. This one, Rosemary Gladestar's Medicinal Herbs, is what I based the majority of my herbal seed purchases on, because a lot of her recipes sound like ones that I would enjoy. Things like basil pesto as a medicinal thing. She points out that most herb pairings we do with our meals are actually there for medicinal purposes. It's just very few people realize it. So I'm really enjoying this. And then I got this one from the library, Incredible Edibles, and I'm really enjoying it because it's a practical approach to plants that might grow easily in pots or things like that. And since I'm so new, I'm probably not going to do a huge amount of digging into the earth. I'm trying to find things that I can grow in raised beds and in pots until I become more confident with this. The other thing I'd like to mention is that I have yet to figure out or decide where, how, and when I'm going to plant the rest of my medicinal herbs. Some of them don't do well in container gardening. Some of them I might plant on the shady side of the house. So I just kind of need to sit down and figure that out. But otherwise, I feel like I'm getting pretty far along. Next steps are to buy the materials for the raised beds and any remaining inventory I need, like soil, or I may do drip irrigation as well. I've heard that's really useful and helpful if you don't have time to go out every day and water your plants. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now. And please check in soon. Come back, subscribe if you enjoy this, and let me know what you think. If you have any suggestions, thoughts, or pictures of where you are in your planning, I'd love to hear it. Thanks.